Hello, good evening, everyone. Today's Thursday, March 26, 2026. We're gathered here tonight for an informational meeting of the Augusta City Council. But first, let's join in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, here we go. Let me preview tonight's informational meeting and topics for everyone here and watching. Part A is persons wishing to address the City Council who have submitted a formal request to do so, and there are none tonight. Part B will be an open comment period for any persons wishing to address the City Council. And then we have specified items for discussion tonight. First would be the Togus Pond update. Next will be discussion of the manufactured homes park lot fees. Third, discussion of the proposed shelter regulation draft ordinance. And fourth, discussion about the opioid settlement fund grant application process. There is another subject that came up earlier today that I've been in conversations with the city manager and corporation counsel and Matt Nazar about. And I'd like to have the council consider a motion to suspend the rules to add an agenda item as number 5, and that would be a discussion of a possible moratorium to limit or prevent residential development in the KB1 on the street level spaces in the KB1 district, which is downtown. There's some interest in putting residential uses on the street level downtown, so it may merit some discussion sooner rather than later. So I guess at the top, I would ask if there was any counselor that would want to make the motion or to suspend the rules to add that agenda item.
I make the motion to suspend the rules to add an agenda item
That one specifically.
Second, it's your ward.
Yep.
for the residential downtown zoning
Moratorium.
moratorium.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. So there's really no discussion on a motion to suspend the rules, but it does require a 3/5 majority vote. I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? That motion carries by a vote of 7-0. Councilor Lynn not being here tonight. Thank you for that, but we'll come back to that at the end once we go through these preceding items. So I've already addressed Part A, so I'm going to move directly to Part B, open comment period for any persons wishing to address the City Council. And if there are, they can come sit here, state your name and where you're from, and have 3 minutes we'll hear from you. Yep.
Enoch Benjamin Petroselli. I'm a resident of Augusta, Maine, and I just wanted to bring something up of concern for me that's going on in Augusta. It's not related to anything happening tonight, anything else. I just wanted to discuss something that was troubling me, and I'm having issues coming to a way of addressing it on my own. So I do ask the people of Augusta, Maine, if you're watching, you can reach out to me after if you have answers for me. Just leave a note here at the City Hall for Enoch Petroselli. So the issue is that I'm having a lot of trouble getting information from my medical providers, and I'm having trouble with a certain organization in Maine that is kind of bullying these other organizations. From what I can tell, this is kind of deductive. I do have some evidence. So I was trying to get some medical records from KBH. I am a client of theirs, and I have been for many years. I was in the Riverview Psychiatric Center hospital in Augusta from 2008 to 2012. A little over 4 years, and I was released into the community to a group home and then to a supervised apartment. And it's a long, arduous process of recovery and taking medication, doing therapy, etc. For me, a lot of that was going to the gym and being physical and staying healthy that way, and meditation, etc. So with that said, I've been discharged completely from that system since 2024, and to my knowledge, it's not legal for Riverview to interfere with my work or my therapy with other bodies that are supporting me in the community that are not connected to Riverview. I'm pretty sure that's a civil rights violation, and I'm having trouble dealing with this entity, Riverview, interfering with my life in certain ways. I won't say exactly what, but if there are people who can help me address this in the city of Augusta, in the state of Maine, I would like to speak to you about it. Some of it is just has to do with slander and how I'm viewed in this community. It's not anyone's fault in particular, except people, they just don't understand the full story. They kind of make an assumption, and I get that, I do. It's just, if you haven't met me in person, please do not judge me. It's not right. You don't know the full story. You don't know what happened to me or my family. So I'm asking the community, please don't judge me, and please don't look down on me. Don't belittle me. It's becoming a problem in my life, so I have to bring it up somewhere. So I'm bringing it up here. So with that said, I would appreciate anybody who has information or who intends to help me to support me in some way. Thank you. Thank you, counselors.
Thank you. Are there any other persons wishing to address the city council at this time?
Just a point of order, if residents want to speak, do they speak during the open period or during the discussion?
Well, I'll allow some limited public comment when we get to the draft ordinance, but if they want to make sure they get heard, now's the time. Because generally when it gets to us, we're talking amongst ourselves, so I'll,
I appreciate the point of order.
yeah.
Hi, my
Hi.
name's Kathy Rush. I'm here for the moratorium on the mobile home park. Good evening, everyone. I own a home in the mobile home park here in Augusta, and I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today about an issue that affects most of the vulnerable residents in our communities, those who live in mobile home parks across Maine. For many families, owning a mobile home represents stability, independence, and the dream of affordable home ownership. But unlike traditional homeowners, these residents often, do not
Take
own
your time.
the land beneath their homes. That means when the rent increases, sometimes dramatically, they have little choice but to pay or face losing everything. Moving a mobile home is not as simple or affordable for many residents, especially seniors, working families, and those on fixed incomes. Relocation isn't an option. This leaves them uniquely vulnerable to sudden and excessive rent increases. We are here today to discuss the need for a temporary moratorium on rental increases in trailer parks in Augusta. A moratorium is not about punishing property owners. It is about creating a pause, giving lawmakers time to evaluate fair, long-term solutions that balance the needs of both park owners and residents. We have already seen how rising costs, housing, food, utilities, and the rising cost of fuel are stretching families to their limits. Adding unpredictable lot rent increases only deepens that hardship and puts people in risk of displacement and homelessness. This is about fairness. It's about protecting people who make good faith investments in their homes, believing they would have a secure place to live. And it's about recognizing that house instability is not just a person's issue, it is a community issue. A temporary moratorium would provide immediate relief to residents facing sudden rent hikes, prevent displacement and housing instability, allow time to develop thoughtful, balanced policies, protect the integrity of Maine's affordable housing system. We are not asking for permanent restrictions without discussion. Maine has always been a place that values community, fairness, and looking out for one another. This is one of those moments when we must live up to those values. I urge you to support a moratorium on rental increases in mobile home parks and to stand with the residents who are simply trying to keep a roof over their heads. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you willing to take any questions?
Sure.
Are there any councilors? All right, I don't see any. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, counselors. My name is Isabella Milbury, and this is Deborah Milbury. We both live in Riverside Drive Park in Augusta. Thank you for hearing from all of us today. My request tonight is still the same as it was originally, for you to consider a temporary moratorium on lot fee increases for mobile home parks in Augusta. To avoid just reiterating myself, though, I'd like to discuss this moratorium from the perspective of how it affects not only myself and other residents of mobile home parks, but also people residing in the city at large. While sitting and listening to the previous city council meetings I attended, I noticed that homelessness in the city is a problem you all worry about, as you should. I remember last month listening to the manager of the Augusta Overnight Warming Shelter talk about the work that they do providing a warm place for homeless individuals to stay during these cold months. It's such important work that they do because it keeps those that are already homeless off the streets, and it makes their lives just a little bit easier. However, when they spoke about their work, it made me think about how those people being homeless and how they became that way in the first place, and why there are not more protections in place to stop them from getting there. It was also heartbreaking to hear about the increase in elderly individuals experiencing homelessness, and how our own problems in mobile home parks can reflect that process. Homeless people don't come out of nowhere. People like us are the beginning of it. People that are either retired and on Social Security or disabled or with jobs with raises and bonuses that don't cover the increase in rent costs. You get priced out year over year, hoping maybe next year you can afford to move your trailer, and you have to slowly decide what to drop to afford your rent, until at one point there's nothing left to choose over. At that point, your only choice is to attempt to sell your trailer to someone else before you get evicted, or sell your trailer back to the mobile home park company for far less than it's actually worth. Some of the people, after which it is either fixed up or torn down and rented out for twice of what you paid originally in lot rent. Some of the people going through this won't end up homeless, but some of them will, and I think that makes all of this worth your time. With mobile home prices one of the most affordable types of housing out there, once you are forced out of these parks, there's often nowhere else to go unless you have family or friends that you can rely on for housing. And once you're on the streets, you rely on even more public services such as the overnight warming shelter, food banks, or other housing assistance. And these are partially funded through government grants at all different levels, costing both you and us as taxpayers more than if we keep people in homes in the first place. Thank you so much for your time. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Councilor Gary Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for coming back down. I remember both of you from the last time. One of the questions I had was, one of the worries we had when we spoke to you last time was whether or not the conversation that the city was having was going to cause any negative impact to you. What I'm curious about is, have you heard from your property owners or had any contact from them since the last time we talked?
At the moment, we have not heard anything from them about this. We are not aware if they know or not.
Okay, have you received any rent increases since the last time I saw you?
No, I mean, we are going to be receiving a law increase on May 1st for $23. That's the next one, but that was already known, I believe, last time we came in here.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for continuing to advocate for yourself.
Counselor Judkins.
Just so it doesn't see any, how long have you folks lived there?
We have lived there since the end of 2019. It was
2019.
fall, I believe, or summer for, you moved in summer. I came back in.
2019.
What was your rent when you first moved in?
Let me see, I have the rent was, just over 375, it's probably 380. I have a chart that or actually I can.
And where is it at now?
It is at 493 now, and it will be going to 510 in May.
Thank you very much.
And I apologize, 2019 you said?
Yes, 2019.
Any other counselors have questions at this time? All right. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that'd like to address the council on this or any other subject? Yep.
Hi, my name is Kim Matthews. I am the property manager of Deer Ridge Mobile Home Park. I don't disagree with what some of these people have just said, but Deer Ridge is a different, unique park. They are mandated by Rock USA, which they are a member-owned park. So every year, we do a budget. We can only increase over the budget by 10%, so they have a reserve account, and they're member-owned. So to put a moratorium on them, they might be subject to not being able to pay their bills. There's just was a new water thing that they now have to, because they don't have city water or sewer. So there's a new water testing thing that they now have to have that test done once a month. So they just increased their stuff. But they are member-owned. They approve their budget every year. They approve their rent every year. So they have a say in what their bills are. They have a say in what their whole expenses are and what their rent are. So they know what they say. They see their financials every month, and they are member-owned. So it's a whole different situation. So I do hope, and I did read the ordinance some. I am on the, I live in Thomaston. I'm on the select board down in Thomaston, and I was on the planning board before that. So I did read some of that. So it does look like you have taken that into account, but they would actually, that could hurt them, where other parks, I can see where they're coming from. So, this, I'll just say it, this trailer park is not, nobody's getting a pocket lined. They are only paying their bills to affordability, and their rent at this point in time is $310, is going up to $310, and a lot of it is because of the water treatment that they now have to pay monthly versus it was quarterly. So, thank you, and I'll take any questions that you might want.
Counselor Girion.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for your service on your select board.
Thank you.
Could you explain to me a little bit more about the membership owned? How did that become, like, did they choose, like, they bought into the land together? How does that work?
Yeah, so they, what happened basically, and I do 3 different parks in the state of Maine, and they're all, what happened is the owner of the park didn't want to have the park anymore. And so this program, Rock USA, comes in and they help them buy their park. They help them get a loan to pay the owner of the park, and then they pay their rent, and part of their rent is paid to this loan. So they all have a $100 membership fee, and they all own their own park and have the rights to their park, basically, on how their parks run.
Okay, that's super helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. And then Rock USA, just to add that, and Rock USA stays with them and helps them with rules, regulations, people that are delinquent, and that type of stuff. And so they do have park rules that they all have to vote on if somebody's not abiding by those rules. But it is, like I said, all the members of the park have a say in this park.
Can you say the name of the park again?
Deer Ridge,
Deer Ridge, okay. And then, how many lots are at that park?
there's 12 right now. We could have 13. We're getting a couple of them cleaned up. We'll just go with that.
Thank you. That's super helpful. Thank you.
Counselor Lilly?
Thank you. The 310, that's for does that include the $100 membership fee as well?
No, that's paid when, everyone has to have a background check when they come in, and that $100 is paid once they are approved to be in the park.
That's a one-time fee?
It's a one-time fee, and it's put in just like a security deposit for rent. It's put in a separate account that collects interest.
Thank you.
Counselor Jenkins?
And what is the rent there now per lot?
It's 310. Well, as of May 1st, it's going up to 310. It was 290.
Okay, thank you.
And when you say member-owned, members are the lot owners, is that right?
Yes.
Not the lot owners, but the owners of the home, right?
Yeah, they own their own, the trailers on the lots are theirs, and then the park is owned by Deer Ridge LLC. So,
And they're a member, so that's who, when we say members, that's who they are, the owner.
Yep. yeah.
Okay. Counselor Sinkwitz?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for coming down. Our city staff, I think, contacted someone at the park earlier and included, when I was reading my memo for this week, I was very interested in hearing about your park. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, I talked to Eva.
Yeah. So one of the questions I had is one of the differences that I see between your park and the parks that have come to talk to us is the private water. How is that paid? Is that paid per resident? Like, does each hook up? Go ahead.
So it's all based on, they have to have maintenance on it, so they pay the maintenance out of the rent money.
Right.
So the rent all goes into one pot. They have an electric bill that helps services the pump that they pay. Actually, they have 2 electric bills. And then all the water treatment and all that. They have somebody on the park that's trained to do the salt and stuff like that. We're going to train 2 more people on the park, so there's more people on the park. And then we actually have a company that comes out and also does all the testing for us on the private water system.
And that all comes out of the rent fees?
Yep.
So there's no secondary fees on top of that you pay monthly?
No.
Okay. Thank you for that. I'm interrogating the $200 difference here between lots fees, trying to figure out where that might be coming from.
Yeah, and they actually, they have a loan payment they pay every month for the property itself. So they're paying a loan payment, they're paying electrical fees, they're paying a property manager fee, which is me, so they're paying other fees. Rock USA, they have a fee to them, and so they have and that's what their rent is, so.
With significantly fewer lots.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really appreciate you giving this insight into how we need to be careful about what we're talking about and make sure that we're impacting our community in the way we want to. So thank you
And
very
actually, the
much.
other 2 parks that I have, their fees are much higher than that, and they have more residents, so. And one's in Thomason and one's in Camden, and one's 310 and one's 420, but that one's going down because I just got hooked up to the city sewer. So they can be more affordable. So I do agree with these people over here, but yeah, I do want to protect Deer Ridge from having to not,
Well, thank you for being a part of providing affordable housing in the city of Augusta.
Of
Thank you.
course.
Counselor Morris Pauly?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for coming down, and thank you for taking all of these questions. What is the contingency plan if something significant goes wrong in the park? So let's say that you're not on public sewer, so it's a private septic. Let's say that the leach field goes. Who absorbs that cost, and what is the plan for if something that extensive happens?
So I think you'll be really surprised. They also put a reserve pot, which is part of their rent. So we put money aside, so we actually have an account that has a reserve fee in it. So that's also included in their rent every month, that a certain portion of the rent goes into a reserve account. So in case these expenses come up, we just got hit last year with a $10,000 repair bill that we had money in the reserve to be able to cover it, and we have a certain amount in that reserve. And then when we figure out the rent, there's a percentage of that. So it can be done if some of these parks that are owned by other people really want to make it work.
And the other question I had is that you talked about a couple other parks that you're associated with, and some of them were a little bit higher. Are those the ones that have more homes in them that are higher?
One of them, yes, one of them is, the other one's the same amount, and it's the same number of homes, but they are hooked up to public sewer and water, so they don't have those extra bills, so they're able to, and then the other one just got hooked up, so they'll go back down to approximately where Deer Ridge is now, but before that, they had 52 residents running off in private water and private sewer until just recently, so that's why theirs was so much higher. They had to actually haul their septic to the sewer treatment plant every day, so,
So the one that was 410 before it's
Yeah.
been hooked up had 52
yeah,
residents in it? Okay. All right, so, okay, thank you.
yeah.
Counselor Gary Allen?
Thank you. I'm sorry for the second questioning line. I'm just trying to think, is it like a collective? Like they all meet once a year to put together their budget, and if they don't agree, they vote, and if it goes through, et cetera?
It is, yep, they have an annual meeting every year.
I want to live in a collective.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
Yeah, and actually, we have monthly meetings.
You have
So they
monthly
have,
meetings?
yep, the monthly meetings, any of the residents, they post them 2 weeks in advance. So any resident that has anything going on, any issues, they can come to those meetings. We have an agenda that's posted, so they know what we're doing. And then we have the meetings once a month to go over anything that the parks might need. So that's where it's completely member-oriented, and all the members can be very involved or not be involved, because some people, no matter what, so it's,
And you have pretty active overall?
we
folks?
do, and most of them, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a few that, you're never gonna get them active no matter what you do, but.
Yeah, I mean,
but,
that's fine. Like, they must trust the people who are there at the
Yeah.
meeting, or they would be there.
Yeah, and we've had a lot of, they have a whole board that has a president, a vice president, a treasurer, a secretary. They put out minutes, the whole 9 yards, so they're very, very well established, and Rock helps them make this establishment, so.
Thank you.
Counselor Mishu?
Good evening.
Aye.
But this is only contingent on if the current owner of a property wants to sell it.
Correct. Yeah,
That's the only,
you know-
that's the, and I've seen over the last 4 or 5 years throughout the state of Maine, there have been trailer parks put up for sale, and the residents have gotten together and done that, but again, contingent on the owner wanting to sell, so,
correct, yeah, correct on that,
thank you.
so.
Others? All right, good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else like come forward under Part B of our agenda, open comment period? All right. We'll move on then to Part C and C1, Togus Pond update. City Manager.
Thank you, Your Honor. We have our friends from Togus Pond, Sarah and Greg, here to do a presentation on, we at least get one annual update on what's happening in the exciting times out there. So we'll, and there's a little PowerPoint presentation we'll go through, and I'll turn it over to.
Thank you very much, City Manager Mills and Mayor O'Brien and council members. Good evening. I'm Greg, Sarah joining me, and we're up here to fill you in on what we are, what's happening, and I'll see you in 2 weeks, and we'll talk about the airport. So I'm looking forward to that one. So the presentation basically will give a little bit of history and participation, which we thank the council eternally, because we've been doing a lot for over a decade to upgrade the lake, and the city council has been on board all of the time, and so a significant amount of thank you there. So we'll talk about history. Okay, next slide, Matt. Yeah, bit of history and improvements over the lake over the last 15 years, and the next steps. So I'll cover the first two, and Sarah will do the rest. Just as a reminder, next step, Matt, please. This is what the lake looks like when I had family members over on the 4th of July in a canoe, making path through the green. So it's been there, and it's been there probably since about the 1900s, and it occurs at various points during the summer, typically toward August, but it's been as early as July, and that affects property values. It affects the people calling me because they're about ready to pull the trigger on an Airbnb, and they say, Greg, what is the water like? Because we're not going to pull it if the water's not good. So we hear all of that. But that's what we have. So we looked at multiple ways to address this issue. Matt, please, thank you. So early on in, let's see, this was back about, do I have the date on there? Sarah, do you have the date on, we did that?
This way, 2019.
2019. One of the thoughts was to reintroduce alewife back to the lake. So this is an overhead picture of the fishway that is it's actually in Chelsea. So we worked very closely with Chelsea and the city of Augusta to put that in. It was designed by Wright Pierce down at Topsom, and then it was put in by T. Buck, and that was about a $500,000 project. The Lake Association did a lot of preliminary work as far as you can see all the green up around it. We had the lake cleared, had that ready to go. So when it came time to let the contract, T. Buck came in and DMR managed it, and it was supported by a large grant from NOAA. To get that done. It's been great. The alewife has been returning. There is going to be another count this year, but I think, 40 to 50,000 on that order maybe is what I think. So it's been sustaining. The thought process was from a landowner that's been there forever, and he said, Greg, let's save the dam. but it works. It's pretty cool, and that happens at the end of April, May, depending upon the weather. But you're welcome to drive by. You can't park in front of the road, but you can park up on the side a little bit further down and just walk, and you can see the alewife. It's kind of a cool thing. They'll come back all around. The stream is at the top. They'll come on the lower end and work up to the bend at the far end, and then come back and they go off into the lake, and that's how that works. So that's been there, and it's been running since that particular point. The next one, and you can see this came in 2022. This is probably the state-of-the-art boat launch. I mean, it's got 3 separate components. It's the only handicap accessible boat launch in the state, I think. And so on the top left corner is a hand carry that people can park, and they can hand carry up into the main part of the lake. If you go up to the right, that's the highway, and the ramp is off to the right, the bottom part of the right, and people can carry and drop their canoes and light boats up into the stream part. And the main boat ramp is onto the bottom, and that's where people come and park their boats, get the boats ready, and launch the boats. So one of the major concerns that the folks have had is invasive species, and we'll talk about that here in a bit. But it's been very nice, and to have that public access has given us a lot of benefit, as we talked about later, as far as grants and that sort of thing goes for other improvements to the lake. All right, so next one, Matt, please. This is the biggest one that we had. 2 years ago, Jared had come out. We had surveys, public surveys done. The city helped with that. It's helped with the cost. We had a watershed-based treatment plan that was done, and one of the recommendations to treat the green was to keep the phosphorus from coming up, and it was done by alum. And alum goes in, it binds with the phosphorus, and it doesn't lose its bond as it does when the oxygen gets low. So the total price of this is $800,000, and we split it up in 2, 124, and the next one is coming up in a month in April of this year. April 20th, we're going to start to put the second part down. And so that's a barge that leaves. We had a homeowner on Tasker Road who volunteered his property to be able to stage this. They had 2 8,000-gallon tanks, and I mean, he just was very good, which saved us the money to have to get that publicly done or build separate roads. So that came in, and the next one, as I said, is coming in, and it's helped. We had a little bit of green last year, and we're hoping that the second part is going to work. Sarah is in charge of the whole restoration project, and we raised, with the help of the city and a lot of businesses and the homeowners, the first part of it, $400,000. And then we had, we were lucky because the former city manager, Bill Briggio, you know where he is now, he helped us out a lot with the restoration fund, and we were lucky enough to have a permit on board showing that we could do it, and we got 200,000 from the DEP to be able to help us do this year, and Sarah helped us with the rest. So there's a lot of movement and a lot of support from the community. And let's see, it takes about a week, and you're more than welcome to come by. You can see the barge. Jared Mills came out. We didn't get good weather there, Jared, but
It was a good time, though. I highly recommend you going out. It's quite something.
It is something to
yeah.
see.
yeah, it really is. And these people do it all over the country. And okay, so let's go, next one, Matt, please. So just to kind of recap where we've been and how much we've put into the lake. We've had 4 DEP 319 grants, that's for water quality, total about $300,000. Maine DEP was the main about that, and then Kennebec County Soil and Water District helped us a lot with the current one and all the former ones. That city helped us out with funding and in-kind support and mulch for this last one. We contributed ourselves and the major components for $300,000. The fish ladder, we built up at about $500,000, and we did a lot of preliminary work. We had to have an archaeological study done because of a dam and a potential mill that was over there. So that came out of our hide. City of Augusta helped us with that as well. Nor did the major grant, as I said, and the Department of Marine Resources was the primary mover and ran that project. And then the alum treatment, as I said, that ran about $800,000. The total one will be Maine DEP. The grant is that. City of Augusta helped us again with that piece and our fundraising. So it's all about we've invested a couple of dollars into the lake, and it shows. Because people from out of town now have written this in their newspapers about how cool it is to come out on the lake and do it. So it's really a benefit. The issue that we've had is the courtesy boat inspection. With the public ramp now, we are struggling to make that happen. We attempted to try to do the funding, but we realized that if you do your own funding, there's all the overhead with the rent, with the insurance and all of that. So it become cost prohibitive for us to do. We're doing this year, joining with China Lake, who's that established, and the cost is about $6,000. The Kennebec County Soil and Water District have asked us to be part of that, so they're helping us with that. So we feel that that's going to be a very good investment to be able for us to give some prevention to what we need now. Because that's going to be the next piece. And that's about where we are. And Sarah, I think let's go to the next one. Yep. So Sarah can help us out here so this is the next. We've done what we can so far as the alum and as far as a lot of the road work, and we're working on education, and the next part is the prevention.
So if there's anything we've learned, it's a lot more expensive to remediate than it is to prevent. So now that we have the alum treatment underway, we want to look at, and we have been, it's not that we haven't been looking at prevention for years and years. With all those 319 grants, we've improved our camp roads, our driveways. We have a real strong Lake Smart program, and this last 319 grant we got really got a lot of new buffers on the lake. So we're constantly educating and providing assistance to everybody. But as I'm sure most people have heard about invasive aquatic species, it is a big problem and a growing problem in the state of Maine. Togus Pond hasn't had a public boat launch until recently. So we've been pretty lucky that we haven't had invasives in our lake. But, joining up with China Lake Regional Lakes, we're all pretty close together. When you look at it from the air, driving, it might not seem that way, but when you look from the air, we're all together, and people are boating from one lake to the other. So the courtesy boat inspection program is vitally important to preventing invasives from getting into the lake. So we're also working on trying to organize a plant patrol and getting volunteers trained to identify invasives so people can adopt a shoreline paddle, every few weeks and look for invasives. So it's a good program. We have some workshops coming up this summer for that. But we really need, we could use some help with funding for this courtesy boat inspection. This has been a long time of fundraising to raise that $800,000. And so, and it's a good investment. It's a good investment for the city because Togus Pond is really probably one of the largest recreational areas in the whole city. I mean, people come from, it's not just for the people that live on the lake. People come from all over year-round to use the lake for recreation. So it's a good investment.
And I think that's it. Any questions? Yes.
Doing some research, the lakes in the area, whether it's Togus or Weber or China, you can equate all of the algae blooms and things to agricultural runoff over the past 50, 75 years as a major contributor?
The part of the watershed bay treatment plan was to go to and go into the muck of the lake and take samples from the ground, and so a lot of the deposit is in there, and that's what that is. So some of it has been, we don't have much left agriculture anymore, but that covered that piece, and a lot of it is the residents, old, no septic systems, all of that, and it goes in, and then the buffers weren't there, so the buffers now prevent the phosphorus from coming in, and training people or educating people that, hey, you don't use phosphorus to make the grass green, because it just hurts the lake. So it's all part of that education piece.
So you're going to have your final alum treatment here in a couple of 3 weeks. I don't want to use warranty period, but what does that look like if, in a perfect world, how long? Because I have friends that live on the lake, and one of them said, well, it doesn't look like it hasn't looked for a year like I could walk across the lake in. So there's a distinctive difference right now, but how long do they estimate these treatments will keep the lake
DEP,
somewhat pristine?
Yeah, well, we're hoping that. DEP has figures anywhere from about 10 to 20 years, depending, and a lot of it is how well the prevention is done, I think, besides the alum treatment, because the alum treatment's there. Phosphorus will get in, but if we can reduce the amount that's going in, and that was the Lake Smart program and the other programs that we have, the buffer program, to keep the phosphorus out as much as we can, then, hopefully 10, 15 years. I don't take that to Las Vegas, but that's
No, but potentially you'll have to repeat this process?
That's the point. So the issue is now we maybe start putting money toward that again, and there may be other options down the road, but for right now.
Because, how much do inlets and outlets help flush a body of water?
The refresh rate on the lake is about 70%. In other words, it won't completely refresh every year. It takes a little bit more than probably about a year and a third maybe to do that. So there is some, and we don't have a lot of the flushing out of the main lake because of the causeway on 105. So that doesn't go down all of the way. So we can't get a lot of that out. We can't adjust the dams like some folks might be able to do. But the refresh rate is not as much as we'd like to have. It's better down in the stream, but it's not up in the main part.
Thank you very much.
Councilor Sinkowitz?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you both for coming down and giving us this update. This is very good news that the second alum treatment's going in. You have done incredible work that does benefit the lake community, but it benefits all of us. My children don't know how spoiled they are that the only public boat launch they've ever experienced is at Togus. They're going to have a rude awakening someday. It is truly wonderful to go experience everything Togus has to offer as an Augusta resident, and like you said, the surrounding communities. When I was there last summer, a traveling nurse couple was chatting us up at the boat launch where they had come from Alaska and they were saying, you know, we might come back. And they loved Togus. So thank you for everything you do for our community. I find your request very reasonable. I think that this is the real cost of having a public boat launch, and the benefit is largely to the public of having the public boat launch. So I would be in favor of bringing forward financial assistance to cover this $6,000. Given that I am one of the public that has used this public boat launch, I would find it very reasonable for some of my tax dollars to go to this. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Which part of the boat launch, did you use the large boat launch?
We used both sides. We didn't drive a boat in. We had a large canoe that I was in charge of the children, and the canoe my husband was in charge of. So we started on one side, did a little paddle around, realized the kids were not quite ready for being with the big boats, and then went to Lower Togus after that, and had just a fantastic time. The kingfishers were out, or kingbirds, I'm forgetting, and lots of mayflies, dragonflies last summer. It was beautiful.
Yeah. A lot of people are there, and there's a lot, and they redid the causeway, so there's people can get off the causeway now and do fishing. So it's really nice to see the populations that are out there.
Yeah, there was someone fishing while we were there, right off the causeway, and just many different types of water recreation all in the same place coexisting. It was wonderful.
Yes.
And in the winter too. I mean,
Yeah.
people use that boat ramp to go out and fish I mean, there's a lot of people on a beautiful day. There's people from everywhere out there fishing.
Braver than me this winter.
Councilor Morris Polly?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for that presentation. I can say you guys have done a wonderful job. I'm in the middle of something kind of similar on North Pond, so I understand the work
I know where you are.
that you have going on here. So, I think that Togus Pond is a great attraction to Augusta. It brings a lot of economics to this area, and you've done a great job also in helping maintain the property values out there. And so I think that it's important for me to say that helping maintain the work that you've already done seems very appropriate. So I would be in support of helping this and making sure that you guys can help maintain that and all the work that you've done. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Gary Allen and then Councilor Judkins.
Thank you. So I haven't actually been out on the lake on a boat, but I've been going out to watch the aurora borealises.
Oh, yeah.
Like late at night.
Right, yeah.
It's so beautiful. And it's like so clear and you can see the sky. So thank you for all the work that you've done. I'm just curious, does the council have this amount of funding available in our council contingency funds?
I would have to double check, but I believe it's probably in there and we could do an order.
Wonderful. I would like to move forward an order.
Councilor Judkins?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just from a professional opinion as a realtor, one of the things that affects property value on waterfront property is water quality. That's one of the most significant drivers. That's why you pay different money for a home on Togus versus one on Belgrade Lake or Cobbessy Lake or Maranacook. The water quality is a significant factor. Several years ago, they used to do the alum treatment for 3 Mile Pond. And then I'm not sure the specific behind why, but they stopped. And that lake turned so green, and there was a drop in over probably a 5-year period of about 30% of valuation for all of the camps, cottages, and homes on 3 Mile Pond, not very far away from Togus. Just a less than 1% devaluation of the property on Togus Pond from this type of an effect for the water quality, it gets milfoil, what have you, is $6,000 is nothing compared to 1%, just a 1% drop. So this is smart business for all of us. So I wholeheartedly support this. And I don't think we've taken anything out of contingency fund this year, and would be scheduled to refund that again in June.
Yep, 1st of July.
Yep. So
Yep, I believe it is. I know we've used some, but I believe there's $6,000 in there.
okay, good. That's where it should come from. Yep.
Thank you.
Two quick questions. One's a dumb question, but does alum have anything, does it have any impact on invasive species or just
No.
binds with the phosphorus and that's it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
That was a dumb question. The other one's a curious question.
It's no dumb
Is it ice out yet?
No, it's not. I think all the polls are sold, all the poll is all sold out, Mayor. So I don't think you can, I think get your money in on that.
All right. Anyone else? All right. Thank you very much for the update and for coming and letting everybody know, and we'll be checking our contingency account.
We'll be in touch during the treatment, and you're welcome to
That'd be
come.
great.
It is pretty interesting. You'd probably really be interested to see it from North Pond.
And we can let the city manager's office know when the alewives start to run. Because, that's over a few week period, couple week period maybe, to get down there. So it's just on the way to Chelsea. It really is pretty cool to kind of walk around.
And throughout the summer, when they
Yeah, that's true,
follow
that's true.
For the
Yeah.
lake, so
Yeah.
there are certain times where it's just a highway of fish following.
Yeah, yeah.
Councilor Allen?
I submit that this should be our council field trip. Remember when I said we were going to go like ice skating and then I backed up real quick because I hate this cold? This should be our council field trip.
All right.
Well, hopefully we'll have good weather this year for that alum treatment. It was a little brisk
It was,
last
yeah.
year.
Thank you.
And that Councilor Lynn's not here tonight, but he's always been very, I don't want to speak for him, but he's always been very supportive of.
Thank you. Yes.
Well, I have. All right, the next item is C2, manufactured homes park lot fees. We've heard some public comment, but now we'll talk amongst ourselves. And this continues to be brought forward by Councilors Gary Allen and Sinkowitz. Do you want to speak to it, or we want to hear from Matt first? or-
I would love to just turn it over to Matt because you gave us all this information that was really helpful.
You're welcome. Matt Nazar, Director of Development Services for the City of Augusta. I've provided the council with a memo and with a couple of documents. One was just an explainer from Old Orchard Beach, so you can see what that community has done with their ordinance that they have adopted. I've also provided the model ordinance that the state put together. So there's a Maine Office of Community Affairs that finally put that together. Well, finally has it on their website at this point. But it was a result of an LD that was adopted last year, and they were required to put together a model ordinance on rent stabilization for manufactured housing parks. And then the other item that I have provided to you is, and I just passed that around earlier this evening while folks were talking here, is a table that includes the information that was gathered by staff in my office from the parks here in the city. She attempted to contact some parks outside the city as well, but unfortunately didn't get any responses back from them. So this gives you at least some understanding of what's going on here in the city with respect to the parks that she was able to get a hold of. And I guess I'll leave it at that. I don't have a recommendation. I know this was brought up by a counselor, and I'm here to provide any assistance that the council would like me to provide.
Let me begin by asking if councilors have any questions. Councilor Sinkowitz, or comments?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Matt, I had a couple of questions about the table.
Sure.
Just clarifying, for both of the parks that are owned by Sun, under the sewer fee section, and I guess the water fee section, it says metered pay base rate, no additional fee. I think I understand what that means, but I want to make sure.
My understanding is there's 1 meter on the water side, of course, on the at the front of the park, and that the park then splits the fee among owners in the park. That's the way I understand it. But perhaps if you have a question of one of the owners, they might be able to better understand it. So that's what I understand is happening there.
Okay.
Each of the units does not have its own individual meter.
Okay, so like we had kind of heard some of this before, that there's a meter that comes into the park. From that point on, it is privately owned by the park, the pipes that go to each lot. And that is part of the lot fee generally?
Yeah. Uh, uh, Yes, it's included in their lot fee, exactly, is what I understand, yes. So it's evenly broken up and then added to the monthly fee that they end up having, is my understanding.
Okay. The other thing on the line for Riverside was the fee increases. This year, the rent increased. Riverside is more since there are more lots. I was surprised by that reasoning. I had assumed there might be an economy of scale where the rent might not have to be as high per lot. Do you have any?
I don't have any insight into that from that property owner. I don't know what the thought process is there.
Okay. I understand there may be more places to drive and to plow and things like that, but I had wondered if that might even out. And I guess just a comment, I was surprised that owners of mobile homes would have to pay to have a dog. That was surprising to me, a monthly payment for a dog. I'm going to turn it over for a while to let other people ask their questions. Thank you, Matt.
So, Matt, I had a question. I had a constituent ask me, what is the legal, how can a city or a town, make these impositions on a business owner, the owner of the park? Where's the legal authority to do that? Is that something you can speak to?
I don't think that is one that I have a quick answer on. I haven't asked our corporation counsel that, and I'm definitely not an expert on that. I don't know if the manager has had that conversation or not.
Yeah, we've had some. I know that it is happening in other communities, and he feels that after reviewing what is there and what's presented, we would be on ground to do so. But I know he had some kind of similar concerns initially and wanted to really review that. But that's the best I can do, and we can certainly follow up with Cam for a more articulate explanation.
See, the other thing I see is several of the places seem to have planned rent increases coming up during the spring.
Mhm.
So if those have been noticed, if you will, or the residents know about this, does a moratorium put in place now prevent even those scheduled increases from taking place?
The moratorium.
If we did.
Yeah, the one that I remember seeing for Waterville, I'm trying to remember the details on that one. I think that it did, but I'd have to re-review the moratoriums that have been put in place to see how they functioned for previously announced rent increases for the year when the moratorium went into place. I'd have to, and I'd also defer to Corporation Counsel on that. I know that the moratorium issue in particular was one that he had wanted to do more work and review of.
In any of the, I didn't really read this before because it was so small. My eyes are not that good. But in your work, did you come up with any places that are doing rent increases more frequently than annually?
From what we were able to glean, it typically is annually.
Okay.
If there is a rent increase, it is typically on an annual basis.
Okay. Councilor Michoud?
Well, this is not a question, more an observation. And again, I don't know how a municipality can regulate free enterprise. That's kind of how I'm having just a bit of a misunderstanding of that, because I don't think we can tell a landlord what he or she can rent an apartment for, or we can't tell the guy down at the market what he's going to charge for watermelon. So I'm just not sure legally what parameters we have to set any moratoriums or fixing costs on anything. I would hope that whoever owns these properties is being 110% fair to their tenants and covering their costs, and obviously they're in business to turn a profit, but hopefully not gouging anybody. I just don't really clearly understand how we can regulate anything or even put a moratorium on anything for any period of time. So I'm just really struggling with that.
Yeah, I don't have a clear understanding of the legal parameters of it either. I do know that it is occurring in other communities. I know Portland has had rent control on residential apartments for a number of years now, and so it is something that is being done by more than just one or two other communities. I didn't get the sense from Corporation Counsel that there was a concern about doing the rent control and how that might work. I think that what I got an understanding of was that they wanted to have a better understanding of how a moratorium might work. But I think that he's looked at that at this point and is comfortable with it.
In addition to the state LD 995.
1765, LD 1765 in last year.
That was passed into state law, which will be enacted as well, so.
Right. That particular law was, the title of it was an act to ensure affordability and stability in residential housing and manufactured housing communities. It made a number of modifications to state law regarding exactly these issues, in addition to requiring the state to create the model ordinance that you have in front of you.
Right.
All right, so it has been addressed at the state level.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilor Carrion?
Excuse me. So I see this, the government has the power, the legal power to regulate business commerce. We've done it for the cost of taxis for decades now. We just chose to not do that, to allow for the free market to bloom and figure out if that would increase access to taxis. I see this as a philosophy debate about what each individual counselor believes the government should do, and not what the legal debate about what the government can do. And so for me, I believe that we have an obligation to our constituents in the face of extreme rental across the entire board of the rental rates, extreme rental increases in the face of housing crisis like we've never seen before, to use the power of the government to regulate a market that has been outpacing the ability of our people to pay the bills. I'm not saying I know exactly how that should look like in this particular instance, but I do believe in the power of the government to do that. And I think that's kind of where we rest in this conversation is whether or not each individual counselor believes in that power. And it's fine if they don't. It's just that's the debate.
Councilor Judkins?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that there's lots of examples where there has been rent control throughout many places. I mean, New York's had it forever. So I am certain that we can do something about rent control. I guess I would further the conversation to it's like, if it's not like just this landlord, as I had said last time, why aren't we looking at all landlords? I have more of a concern about singling out an owner of this particular property or project than I would every single apartment owner in the city. The cost of apartments, not mobile home pads, but apartments, has risen at a much higher percentage and a much faster rate than what I'm seeing that this particular property owner has done. And I'm, you're right, you said it's extreme, and in some cases for residential apartment units, it has been. I think we've missed the boat on that then maybe. My biggest I guess, concern here is, are we going to make this mobile home park owner pay the penance because all these other folks really went kind of crazy? Because I've asked about what a couple of rents were, and the last time, Councilor Morris Pauley asked several people how much when they went in and how long they were there and what the rent started at, where it's at right now. I look at this one particular instance right here, $130 over, it went in 219, it's now 26, 7 years, $130 over 7 years is not a crisis, is not extreme. That's like normal cost of business. If anything, I think that's quite modest. And I don't think that, if an average rent out there is $500 a month in this park, that's not like out of bounds for the averages here in town. Now, I do know that it's not like if you okay, that's too much rent, I'm just going to move. You pack up your stuff and you give you don't renew your lease with your apartment. This is different. Where do you put a mobile home? It's not like you can go put it in a storage unit. And it is involved to have someone come in with a truck and move it and replace it someplace else. So I can see where mobile home owners on rented pads could be taking advantage of. There's more duress there. There's leverage that a landlord could apply that would be undue and unfair. So yeah, there should be some protections for that. I'm struggling with seeing this particular instance, this park, this group of folks. I'm not seeing the abuse here to rise to where we got to put the brakes on immediately. I'm not hearing that part of it, unless somebody else can convince me that I've missed something along the way. And I'd be open-minded to that. So, thank you.
Anyone else? Hands? No. So, where does that leave us? I mean, let me ask another question. I think when we talked about this earlier, we thought that there might be some legislation consideration this year at the legislature, and that there was some thought about, I'm trying to recall the conversation, some thought about seeing how things turn out at the legislature this session?
And I don't know where that all stands at this point. The legislature is quickly coming to a close right now, and I can find that information out for you. I don't have the details on where that stands.
Councilor Gurion?
I think I'm going to meet my fellow Councilor Judkins right there. I think you might be correct. I might be superseding my frustration of the entire rental market onto this issue, because that I'm watching the cost of rent at the entire level impact our community in ways that are detrimental to the individuals who live there, but also detrimental to the broader community. And the cost of rent broadly in the general apartment costs have definitely been extreme in some cases. And so what I would like to do is actually bring this conversation up to the level of, I'm going to regret this, a rental stabilization of across the entire city. And I'm happy to put together a memo and sponsor that on a future agenda.
Informational?
Yeah,
agenda?
informational.
Yeah.
That's one big old can of worms you just
Would you
opened.
like to co-sponsor it with me?
I don't have enough life left in my bones, Councilor Atwood.
It's okay. I got 9 months.
That's right.
So, Mr. Manager?
Well, and I might add, we could have a offline discussion with Corporation Counsel to see what that would look like and provide you with some feedback as well before, if you'd like that.
Yeah.
Because I'm not aware of any communities who have gone to that.
Portland.
Portland, right.
Portland is the one that I know has
Yeah.
it.
Right. Of our size.
No. I don't know of any our size that do.
Councilor Jenkins.
Thank you. I had heard some talk about the legislature, either they have passed a law or were going to be passing a law that they were going to make it a requirement that if the owner of a park wanted to sell, that they would have to give the members or the tenants of that park right of first refusal. And my understanding is that Maine State Housing Authority has assisted multiple mobile home parks throughout the state that have gotten involved in the situation with financing to actually buy out that. And I think that's a wonderful thing to do. If there was any opportunity for anybody in mobile home park and that opportunity comes your way, grab it. It's great. Run it like the Deer Hill or whatever it is.
And as I'd have to look back at the details, but I do know that that was a law that was in the session, in the last session or session before that, and would provide owners with the right of first refusal, as I recall. That's the way it was structured.
Yeah, it's been a viable thing it just mirrors the condominium act, the same thing, or an HOA. In regards to pets too, I mean, if you ever rent an apartment, have to pay a pet deposit,
Yeah, but that's
it's the same thing. Huh?
But that's an apartment, not your home.
Well, but it's cleaning up. They go outside. Well, dogs do, maybe some really smart cats, I don't know. But, there is cleanup that gets involved.
So is there anything that council wants to task the manager or the staff with doing on this issue at this time? Councilor Sinkowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm still really wrestling with this. I look at those numbers and I see at least 220, but probably way more than that, Augusta residents who are being priced out of their homes in this park, in these two parks. And we sit at this, we're about to sit here and discuss increasing property taxes and how that is pricing people out of their homes. And we're talking about similar rates. We're talking the rate from, if it was last year, was 493 to 510 is a 3.5% increase. Our property tax increases have gone between 2 and 5% in the last 4 years that I've been here, with direct benefit to our constituents. We've heard from these parks that they do not feel like they're seeing the direct benefit, that they're not seeing the investment in their park in addition to the rate increases, which is something that's outlined in that model ordinance. It's not just the rate increases, it's if they're not providing the services that can be factored in to, it reminded me of shrinkflation. At the same time, I am wondering if it's possible at all. I don't want to harm the parks that are working well. We have some parks that are working well, that seem reasonably priced, that seem like their residents are happy. And so I do believe that the government has a role to play, especially we know it's way more expensive to help somebody when they've fallen through the cracks into being precariously housed or homeless than it is to help them up front. So I don't know what I want to do because I see this other 100 or so Augusta residents who are saying that they might be harmed by a moratorium or rent stabilization ordinance. And then I'm seeing 220 to more saying that they need this. And I guess that's just my comment, is I haven't figured out where I land on it. I may bring it back up again.
Councilor Morris Polly.
Yeah, that brought up a question. When we talk about property tax, who pays the property tax and how is that divided out with the trailer and the land? So if we increase property tax, it's separated. Okay. How is that separated? Do we know the percentage?
Well, it's, you have the land that is taxed as improved land, and then you have the home that is taxed at what the home is worth per, based. So they're the property, the park owner gets the bill for the improved land, and the mobile homeowner gets the tax bill for the actual mobile home.
So when taxes increase, it's increased on both?
Yes. Yeah, if you have an increased tax rate, your mill rate, the mill rate affects the value. It is assessed against the value or calculated against the value of each of those separately.
Thank you.
So it's assessed against the trailer as real estate as opposed to personal property?
No.
I would double check that.
A mobile home is personal property, so it's personal property tax. Now, I don't know if our mill rate is the same rate for personal property as it is for real estate.
It
That was
is.
my
A
question.
mobile
Yes,
home
it
is
is.
personal property tax.
The mill rate's the same for both. Yeah.
Councilor Allen.
Excuse me, I just wanted to very clearly state what I just said again, but more clear. What I would like to do is I'm going to conduct a policy analysis of rent control, and I'm going to determine my own personal position on rent control using my own, background in policy analysis. And I'm not saying that I am in favor of rent control. I am saying that I would like to have a policy conversation about rent control in which I will write a memo for the council and work with the city manager and talk to Cam to see how that applies. And so before everybody calls me and says that I'm in favor of rent control, that is not what I just said. I said I'm going to use my policy expertise to conduct an analysis of rent control. Thank you.
Very well. Councilor Jenkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The only thing I'd want to preface is, we got to be, I don't want to yell fire in a crowded theater. Just because you say there are 220 people being priced out of their homes, I mean, that sounds very inflammatory. And I don't think that's a fair representation of what's really happening here. That's an extreme. This isn't an extreme. That's not fair. I mean, nobody wants their rents to go up, and I don't want to see their rents go up. But you have to look at the business side, and we need people that have the kind of funding to go in and do this mobile home park. I would like to see more people come and open up mobile home parks here because it is the most affordable way we have for housing right now that's out there. But we got to be reasonable with the people that we expect to come in and partner up and do these things. And to hold, this person as that they're the ogre, driving these people out of their homes. That's not close to what's going on here as far as I can see. I look at that level of rent, and I sell mobile homes in lots of parks all over the area, and this one is reasonable. It's a mobile home park that's not as nice as this one in Sabatis. I just sold a mobile home, and the park rent's $795 for everybody. It's just outside of Lewiston. That's their claim to fame. So, yeah. I'm sorry. That's where I'm at.
The property owners are getting homestead exemptions. I thought it was real estate, but nonetheless.
Mobile homes do?
Yep.
That's cool. That goes a long way because mobile homes, I mean, is that still a $25,000 exemption?
But
With our mill rate, with
yeah,
our
it's
valuation the way it is, it's
Well,
about
when
14.
it
Yes.
gets reval,
It
it will
would
go
be,
back up to
yes.
25, and
Yeah.
mobile homes aren't, I mean,
Yeah, it's listed right now I'm looking at one of the mobile homes in that park, and it's listed at 14, which, like you said, it's 14.
yeah. So when it goes back to 25, a brand-new unit, you might approach 100 or something on a mobile home, but generally speaking, these things, just after a couple years depreciation, are $30,000, $40,000, so homestead exemption is going to wipe out most of their taxes.
All right, so we've talked about this 2, maybe 3 times, I don't know. We've got several choices. We can pursue a moratorium, or we could pursue an ordinance without a moratorium, or we can just sit tight for the time being. And I'm just wondering where people sit. Councilor Judkins.
If all of a sudden this does become crisis, like the owner here gets concerned that, wait a second, I guess it's going to shut me down, so all of a sudden they try to slide in a big rent increase. Can we then do this under like, an emergency type thing or even retroactively?
Emergency probably, but not retroactively, I don't think.
I would agree. I think that that's correct. We could obviously check with Corporation Counsel, but I think that's correct.
Because I don't want that to happen that way. I don't want this to be a whiplash back on these folks, but if the mobile home park owner is still being reasonable, as I feel they probably are, then I'm okay to let it ride. But if they were to do something, reacting to this or change their attitude of their business to become, extreme, then I certainly would want to see these folks back here and back at this table, and then we should do something immediately.
All right. Well, I'm not hearing anything by way of a strong desire to move affirmatively in this area, so of course, any counselor, it's their prerogative to initiate something if they want, but I take from this conversation that we're not giving any further instruction or ask of city staff at this time. Is that correct, Councilor Senkwitz?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This may be a question for Matt. One thing that I am stuck on is the discussion that residents had about their needs not being met by the park owner. And I'm wondering if anyone knows is the Consumer Protection Bureau, or I'm getting the name wrong, with the AG's office.
Yeah.
Is that the correct entity to go to for those kinds of concerns? It doesn't feel like it fits within the city's wheelhouse.
I honestly don't know the answer to that, but
I know with utilities, we vetted
Yeah.
that, so it would be, the water district will take complaints and they work with the PUC for the metered part. But yeah, it would most likely be some type of referral to a state agency, and we could look at that.
I mean,
for sure.
it's a landlord-tenant situation, so I would assume that it would work the same way it would for any other landlord-tenant situation.
Okay, so follow those similar pathways. That was something that I feel like we haven't really fully addressed. And I do take my friend across the table's point that I spoke out of turn, and I do hope to hear the same moderation during our property tax discussions about being moderate in our language. My main concern continues to be that we're not fully capturing what's happening here, where we have the dollar amount, but not the full impact of the lots not being cared for in the way that they were supposed to be cared for, with the things that were discussed around, I think it was trees, and there were some other examples from the last time that our residents came forward, that in this ordinance would fall under a not allowable rent increase. So I just want to encourage our residents to, I guess I want to try to make sure that our residents have ways of going forward and making sure that they are being heard when they feel like their landlord is not doing their job. Perhaps the safe housing mailer that has the information that they might need. I'm not sure. I don't know if that's the avenue for something like that.
Right.
Pine Tree Legal.
We probably would have to phone a friend, or maybe Counselor Judkins has some information on that.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's a place to direct it, direct them accordingly.
Counselor Judkins.
Yes, it would be the Consumer Protection Division of the Attorney General's office. They run a wonderful mediation program, of which I volunteer mediated for 3 years with the Maine AG's office. And this is exactly what they would handle.
Perfect.
And it is no cost to the consumer. You can actually go on to Maine AG /Consumer Protection, and you can download consumer protection, consumer rights in Maine booklet, and there's a wonderful chapter on landlord tenants' rights and responsibilities. It's powerful information. I think anybody renting should avail themselves of that opportunity. But if you do have a complaint against your landlord, they will very readily take it on at no cost and mediate a resolution.
Perfect, thank you.
All right. If there's nothing else on this topic, all right, we're going to move on to C3, the shelter regulation draft ordinance. It's under the city manager's name. Do you want to introduce it, or?
Yeah, hopefully I didn't steal a group's thunder because I didn't do any work, and there was a really hardworking group here who are going to chime in on this. I know I'll introduce Matt, who's the staff member who's done some work on this. So, Matt, if you want to tee it up for the counselors, that would be great.
I will gladly be the opening act for the counselors. Matt Nazar, Director of Development Services. I've provided a memo, a copy of the proposed homeless shelter licensing ordinance. And then in addition to that, there are some recommended changes from the subcommittee to the land use ordinance. Mayor O'Brien had hoped that I would get it into council order format. Unfortunately, I didn't have the time to do that at the beginning of the week. But certainly if the council wants to make a recommendation for a council order to send material to the planning board for next week's business meeting, I can certainly make that happen easily enough. The shelter ordinance, licensing ordinance speaks for itself, and I'll let council members on the subcommittee speak to that, and perhaps answer any questions that other councilors may have. The land use ordinance items are outlined in the memo, the details of those. There were additional zoning districts where shelters were considered to be added as a conditional use to 5 additional zoning districts. That would be the Riggsbrook Village District, Rural River 2, Rural River Medical, and Kennebec Locks. Was one that was brought up as well for the city council to consider. The city council, the subcommittee made further recommendations regarding fencing or an appropriate buffer that be placed to separate the shelter from neighboring uses within 200 feet of any newly constructed shelter. And that would be these are all items that are going to have to go before the planning board one way or another. So if you're building a new shelter, it goes as a site plan review and conditional use. If you're going into an existing building, it's a conditional use. So these would be items that would be reviewed by the planning board for any shelter that goes in. That the proposal would include provisions for adequate outdoor lighting. Right now, the way the land use ordinance is structured, it places upper limits on how much lighting you can have. It doesn't require you to have lighting. The subcommittee felt that it was important that there be required lighting in case a shelter didn't propose some. So they wanted to make that clear. The proposal would include appropriate provisions for an outdoor smoking area. So again, that's going to look different on each site, and the subcommittee thought that it was important that the planning board have the flexibility to determine where that would be, but that it needed to be something that was brought up and discussed and put into an appropriate area based on the site. New construction would not be on a lot smaller than a half acre. That enables construction of a shelter on either of the 2 lots that the city currently owns and is potentially considering. The side and rear setbacks from property lines for the shelter for both new and existing construction would be 50 feet. Again, that would allow construction on both of the lots that the city is currently considering, and enable shelters in existing buildings as well around the city. And if I have made any errors or misrepresented anything, or if there's something, please, subcommittee members, that's what I had in my notes. But if there's something different, please let me know.
So let me first open it up to the subcommittee members. If there are anything that Councilors Morris Polly or Gary Allen, Judkins want to add on at this point? Councilor Judkins.
I would simply say that the intent of this was to have it now so that if someone wants to come in and do a shelter in the city of Augusta, whereas before, what they had to do was go to the planning board for a conditional use permit in whatever zone they were going to try. Then the planning board had a litany of criteria that they would go through. And some of it sometimes was like kind of gray area, like subjective judgment as to even the financing, whether, is that enough? Is that not enough? Where's it coming from? Those types of things. So this was to split this into a licensing aspect, which would go not to the planning board, but to a licensing committee that we already have here in Augusta that is kind of the same thing for like liquor licenses or the pot shops and that type of a thing, be the same kind of format, so we're kind of used to it. And that's where a lot of those questions would be asked, and that would take it away from the planning board to make those kind of decisions in the conditional use process. So in that view, we were hopeful that this actually is going to make it easier, simplify, make it more reasonable in the sense that the applicant really then does know more black and white what's expected of them, and not so much that some of this is decided in subjective judgment type manner. So that was some of what this was intended to do. And I would like to thank Matt for the hundreds of hours you have put into this, and the mayor for his patience, but most especially Councilor Gary Allen and Councilor Morris Polly. You folks did the heavy lifting. You are the experts that work in this industry, and we relied heavily on you, maybe abusively so, and I apologize. But the work you did was tireless and important and phenomenal, and I just want to thank you both. So, not that I don't thank you gentlemen too, but definitely. Thank you.
Councilors Gary Allen or Morris Polly, anything you want to add at this point?
I don't think so. I think we came up with a pretty good understanding and the ability to really look at the safety of everybody who's going to be using this shelter. I think that was one of our biggest things, was making sure that it wasn't just the neighborhood, but it was also the attendees, and making sure that they have safeguards inside the building, and that the neighborhood feels that, they are safe as well, because really it comes down to a lot of perception, and that also the staff that are working there have the training that they need and the expertise that they need to be able to keep themselves safe and keep the attendees safe. So we worked really hard at this, and I think we have a really good product. And if there's any questions or concerns, then I'd be happy to hear them.
Councilor Gary Allen.
Thank you, Councilor Judkins. I really appreciate that. I think we also leaned on you pretty heavily around the land use ordinance, which is not my policy expertise, so.
It was team effort.
Team effort. I'm going to jump right into just a couple of small edits. I reread this for the 472nd time today, and it's just a couple of language edits, not very substantive. I'm looking at page 4, subsection D8. It's regarding the report summarizing the data that we would be looking for the proceeding license here when they go to renew. I would like us to add a requirement to include any admittance requirements, so any reason how a person would be admitted, the criteria for being admitted to the shelter, and what would refuse placement. That might not go there. Ask him where that goes. But pretty much I want to know how a person gets in and why a person would be refused. And then just this language edit to subsection D8E. Instead of the success rate of placement into permanent housing of guests served, I would submit to the council for consideration transitions to housing, including
transitional and permanent housing. And what I'm thinking about is if a person moves from shelter to a recovery residence, that's a win, but it wouldn't be considered permanent housing. It'd be transitional housing. So I'm looking for both types of
Or
housing.
even a supportive housing.
Supportive housing, whatever housing that is not the shelter that they're currently living in. So I'm just trying to
Sense.
capture that better.
Makes sense.
And that's it.
Councilor Morris Polly.
I have a couple of things too, after I reread it for the 512th time.
I bet that is actually true. She's read it more times than me.
Page 3, number 9, the personnel policy, B. One of the things that struck me is that we talked about them having to have these certain trainings, specific trainings, but we didn't put a time frame for training. So if you hire somebody, I know that you cannot get them CPR, AED trained on the first day. So I think that it's important that we identify a time frame for those trainings, somewhere around the 3-month mark, 3 or 6 months, give them some time to come up on those. And I think, in the meantime, obviously we have a staffing ratio, but making sure that they're not alone until they are trained. I don't think that will be a problem if we have a ratio going like we do, but it could be possible that there's only 7 people in the shelter at that time, and we certainly don't want somebody who doesn't have any training to be the only person on. And then to follow up on that, page 4D, subsection 4, we've asked for evidence of management and supervisory staff training, certificates and license. Okay, never mind, because that was for management and supervisor training. I was thinking we were asking for all of the evidence of any type of training, and I think we don't need that, but I think the management and supervisor, so strike that. And then there was one other. Underneath the definitions of critical incidents.
What page are we on?
Sorry, page 1, definitions. Critical incident means the occurrence of medical safety emergency, death, drug overdose, violent act, assault, or other criminal offense, or other event resulting in a disruption in the provision of services by a homeless shelter or its staff guests, or its staff. I think it should be disruption in the provision of services by the homeless shelter, an attendee, a guest, or its staff. I think we just need to add in that the attendee or guest, because the event could result in a disruption of their service provision. And then I think the only other, oh no. Underneath the land ordinance, the subcommittee further recommends that the fencing or an appropriate planted buffer be in place. It looks to me like this language only identified the fencing or the planted buffer for newly constructed shelters. And I believe that the idea was that we would have the fence.
Yes, that's definitely the intent, and I'll make sure that the council order is written that way.
Okay, thank you.
That's how I understood it as well.
And I know this is more of a question, and maybe there isn't somebody here who can answer this, but page 7, under 5, the coordinated entry system. I'm not sure I know what that looks like. And is that isn't something that shelter, I know it's an assessment, and I know that's a pretty lengthy assessment. Is that something that the shelter staff would be responsible for, is doing that significant assessment, or is there somebody from coordinated entry that would be doing that? Yes.
Can you answer that?
Yeah, I can. I think I'm the most qualified here, maybe Betty. So my understanding of the process is that any organization that serves folks who are unhoused may become part of the hub, and then the staff at the organization would be completing the coordinated entry survey questionnaire thing, and then they become part of the coordinated hub, and now they're able to be entered into all the different doors of how to get housing. But yes, it's the shelter. The shelter would be responsible for providing the person to be able to get them into that system.
Okay. So that's a pretty significant assessment. If I recall, it's a 10-page assessment. It's not an easy assessment to
I mean, what I'll say is that our organization does not currently participate in the hub because I do not have the internal capacity to do that.
Okay.
Not that we don't want to, but it's a lot.
Right, which is one of the reasons why I was asking, is because it does seem like it is a lot. I know it's
a
a
lot.
lot, and so that might be a barrier to some degree of having the expertise or the ability to do that. So I wanted to point that out. The only other comment that I had is in regards to the inspection and upon receipt of reasonable prior notice. And I know this is something we kind of tossed around, but I started thinking that, this is a homeless shelter. And I'm not really sure, if it's kind of like a business, like we don't give prior notice to somebody to go into the soup kitchen or into the food banks or to the convenience store. So it just seemed like an odd statement about needing reasonable prior notice before entry when we wouldn't provide prior notice to any other business that we were coming in. So I don't know whether we wanted to think that or talk about that, but it was something that just kind of popped into my head that I probably would go into a soup kitchen anytime I wanted, or a food bank, and probably go into the homeless shelter as well. So who has to give prior notice and who doesn't have to give prior notice to go in?
And I don't have a real response to the details of that, but I do remember that was a recommendation made by Corporation Counsel. So I'd have to defer to Corporation Counsel as to why he recommended that.
That was it.
So some of the overarching points that I want to make sure everybody understands. We've talked about it so much, I don't know how much we've shared with the rest of the council or public, but this, from its initial report to you folks, we've gone back and made this applicable to all homeless shelters, not just low barrier. There are certain types of shelters that are excluded altogether from this ordinance, being shelters that serve survivors of domestic violence, human trafficking, or sexual exploitation for privacy purposes, essentially. And there's, again, it should be clear now, there's two pieces to this. There's the licensing piece, which is an ordinance, which is something that we would go through a couple of readings on. There's the land use piece, which is smaller, but it has those 5 or so elements in it. That material, that would be going to the planning board for their workshopping and recommendation back to the council. It was suggested that we be fairly specific with what we give to the planning board so that, one, they just don't go, don't do too broad a consideration, that they're able to respond specifically to concerns or the ask of the council, and therefore it would make their job easier and quicker to turn it around as well. So these are why those recommendations are fairly specific in terms of what we want them to consider adding to our land use ordinance. The only other thing we've talked about that we haven't talked about with you folks is the issue of a licensing fee. And, we talked about it a little bit. It was clear that a licensing fee should not be considered a barrier for anyone getting involved in this process. And nobody on the committee wants a substantial fee. Some would be content with zero, some would be content with $25 or $50. If you took a look at our licensing schedule, there are some that have no license fee at all. There's some at 25, some at 50, some at 100. If you forget the outliers of the cannabis and those licensing. So that would be another piece that we would need to take action on, but it's really what the majority of the council wants to do on that. So I think, I'm sorry, I forgot, I passed over you, Josh. Councilor Lilly, please.
Well, you actually answered one of my questions, was where we were at with a fee. As I'm reading, I didn't see that, but in the renewal process, there's a 50% late fee and things like that. So I was just wondering if that had got brought up. So thank you for answering that. I would be down for a zero fee, not if we're talking about that. But anyway, so thank you for answering. The exemption part in 22456A, my concern would be specifically the warming center at the South Parish Congregational Church. Is this, with them having a daycare and a preschool there, would that be during their time of operation, or is this 24 hours? Because I don't, and we've heard from them before that having the daycare or the preschool there is helpful for some of the employees that help with working there. So just don't want to put something in place that eliminates a good service already for the city.
Didn't we had something about it just being under the hours of
Spiraled on us
operation?
Forever.
That was
The language, as I understand it, was non-specific. We talked about the fact that the warming center operates that way, but the language that we have in here is non-specific with regard to that. It simply says that no homeless shelter that is legally existing as of the date of enactment of this chapter may be denied an initial license or a renewal license on the basis of its non-compliance with setback from daycares, preschools, or public or private elementary schools. So there's no specification in the ordinance about how that operation occurs. It simply would end up exempting that particular one from those setback requirements.
Is that how we remembered it?
Councilor Gary Allen?
That's how I remember it too, and we did an extensive review to make sure that nothing that we did in this ordinance would impact any of the existing shelters. I think we also landed on this particular language because we were unsure about the exact setback of Bread of Life and didn't want to
Sure.
accidentally do something we were not intended to do.
So you still got the floor.
I just wanted to make sure that whatever ends up coming forward with this, we don't want to have a negative impact in a couple years in 2028 with the facilities that are already operating. Just wanted to, I'm assuming that took place, and I appreciate the work that everybody's put in. I just wanted to make sure that we don't do something that harms the facility already.
The subcommittee was careful to make sure that there's nothing in the ordinance that would prevent those operations from continuing. They may end up having to provide some information and obviously go through the licensing process, and that's going to be obviously the challenge they have to face. But they're not prevented from existing where they are.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Councilor Gary Allen?
Thank you for the second time on the mic. So I wanted to kind of respond to Councilor Morris-Polly, your concerns around the coordinated entry. I do think the coordinated entry needs to stay in specifically because that is how people are going to get access to the full continuum of care across the state. I was even just thinking about the New Housing First project. That's the only way in to the New Housing First. So I just wanted to state that. And then for the notice, I do think that this is a little bit different than like a shelter, a shelter is different in my mind from a community center or a food bank or a soup kitchen, in that those spaces are inherently community spaces versus a shelter is inherently not in a legal terminology, but a private residency is like a home. And so I think that for me, the notice is about giving the participants who live there notice about people coming into their home versus like the organization notice. And I know legally it's probably the organization that is receiving notice, but for me, the reason why I think a notice is important is for the people who live in that home setting to be able to have notice about people coming in their home. We all know I have a thing about the government coming into people's home, and I would not want them into my home without notice.
I think we also talked about the fact that if there was a real emergency situation going on, that
Yep.
we would
Yes.
have authority to enter in to address those immediate or crisis-type needs as opposed to
Yes,
or regular inspection.
absolutely. If there's any sort of emergency situation, a health, some sort of health emergency or other emergency with respect to the building, our health officer and our code enforcement officers have the authority in those situations to be able to deal with it as needed.
Councilor Gary Allen?
Super quick, on the licensing fee, I just wanted to state why, like, I kind of laughed and the mayor kind of laughed about the licensing fee, because it just got to the point where we were all like, We don't really care. Like, whatever the council says, it was a very long conversation about minimal fees and whatnot, so, but I'm team zero. Zero fee.
The one other observation, that really, when we expanded this to all shelters, there's really only one place where a low barrier shelter is treated differently than all shelters generally, and that's with respect to a staff, a staff ratio during certain overnight hours, and that's really the only difference, I think, where low barrier shelters are singled out for a different treatment.
Yep.
Whether the application process or renewal process or anything like that.
And the specific reason for that is because there is a different population that is being served.
Counselor Sinkowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I first just want to thank the subcommittee because this is a substantially different document than came however many weeks ago. So thank you for the work that's gone into it. It's very apparent. I had my usual line edits that don't need to be taking up mic time. So I appreciated the mayor's comment about the planning board because that was one of my questions as well. Was when I first read through it, I was wondering if it's possible to reverse the order so they have the license before they go to the planning board. But if we are very specific about what the planning board's job is, and that is a lower hurdle for entities to get through, then that becomes less of a concern for me. I think my concern was asking entities to get through what we're already asking at the planning board, and then this when we haven't had many get through the planning board process. So if we are sharpening that language and being clear with what the planning board has to do, that seems fine to me. My overall concern, and broken record, I won't spend too much time on it tonight, is that I'm still concerned about the level of expertise that we are ascribing to the council in determining adequate operations and personnel policy. I don't see that role elsewhere. And we have, like last time I talked about alcohol and cannabis licensing, where we have expertise on staff to rely on. We don't have that same expertise on our city staff to rely on. And so I remain concerned about that. As far as the ratios go, one of my questions was, do we know that these are financially sustainable ratios? I don't know. Given that low barrier shelters are probably going to be functioning off set amounts of money, like grants and things like that, do we know that they can have these ratios and be financially viable?
Councilor Morse-Polly.
Yes. So the staff ratios were actually pulled from the HUD standard staffing ratios for regular shelter and then low barrier shelter. And then the other thing that we discussed is that these staff do not have to be trained, paid staff. They can be volunteered staff. So as long as they have the training, which are really standard training, Narcan is life safety training. And so both of those things combined, I think, made it very financially feasible for them.
Okay. With Councilor Morse-Polly's point about the coordinated entry system, the discussion that's happened is useful. The way that I read it as someone with somewhat fresh eyes to this was that the entity itself had to be participating in the entry system, which I think does not necessitate that you do it for every guest, right? There's a line that says this provision shall not be construed to require guest participation in the coordinated entry system. So I'm in favor of leaving it in unless that is a high ask of the entity, because to me that says they engage in it, they know how to engage in it, maybe they're a recognized partner, however that works, but not that they must do it for every guest that comes through their door. And so I think that with what Councilor Gary Allen was saying about access to other systems, makes sense to leave in. And I'll look for others, but I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Mr. Morris Polly?
I think my suggestion with the coordinated entry system is that possibly adding language in there that allows for the licensed premises to contract or MOU with an individual who can help them participate in the statewide coordinated entry system. So it doesn't necessarily mean the shelter staff need to do it, but that they are participating in it by having another entity that maybe comes in and does it with them.